All right. Welcome to the Kidlit Distancing Social. I'm Laura Backus, publisher of Children's Book Insider, the Children's Writing Monthly, and co-creator of WriteForKids.org and WritingBlueprints.com. And welcome to our discussion tonight. For those of you who are new to us or who are watching on replay for the very first time, and you want to be on our list to get notices of all of our upcoming guests, as well as all the other fun stuff we do, you can go to writeforkids.org/ultimate cheat sheet, sign up and get on our mailing list and get a free ebook, which is the Ultimate Children's Writing Cheat Sheet. We've been publishing Children's Book Insider for 30 years, and we have compiled all of our great beginner knowledge into one free ebook for you. So you can get that by going there and getting on our list, and then you'll hear about all our other great social guests and other stuff we have coming up. And if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, writeforkids.org/CBI is a special price just for our socialites, $5 a month. It's about 20 pages a month. It's packed with articles, interviews, how-to information, and market listings. And we always have one special spotlight interview every month with either an agent or editor, and they give our subscribers a special above the slush pile code where you submit to them for a certain period of time, use this code in your submission, and you get to jump over the slush pile. So that is a deal. So writeforkids.org/CBI. And you also have access to our CBI Clubhouse membership website, which is packed with information, videos, articles, all sorts of fun stuff. Okay, every week I do a Where in the World, and I have some place that I go to, as we all want to go places right now, and you get to guess where I am. It's a literary connection. Well, this week, I actually have something a little different. Because we missed last week, I was going to show you this last week, so I don't want to miss it. It was in honor of Hanukkah, so this is a late Hanukkah link, but I wanted to instead alert you to this wonderful website, the Jewish Women's Archive, and it has an incredible article right on the homepage. Children's literature in the United States, and it chronicles all the Jewish women writers who have had such an impact on children's books from the 1930s through the 90s, and a lot of these women are still writing today, and they are names that you will know. And if you grew up, especially if you came of age in the 60s, 70s, 80s, you are going to know a lot of these people. But just a few names I'll throw out there: Jane Yolen, Judy Blume, Judith Viorst, Charlotte Zolotow, Anita Lobel, Barbara Cohen, Joanne Greenberg, who wrote I'll Never Promise You a Rose Garden. Remember that from the 70s? So these women helped shape what we consider to be modern children's books. And not only that, they broadened the definition of what a children's book could be. And so sorry, someone muted me. I'm a firm believer in, if you want to participate or be a part of an industry, you need to know the history of the industry. And this is a great history of children's books. So I made a bit.ly link, bit.ly/Jewish women writers. Check it out. And happy Hanukkah to all our Jewish friends. Okay, so send me pictures for where in the world. I want to see where in the world you are. You could take a picture of yourself in front of a landmark. You can send me information of some literary landmark that you have been to or think is really interesting, little description of it, and we will feature you on a future Kidlit Distancing Social. You can send it to mail@writeforkids.org and put where in the world in the subject line. So another thing we do every week, if you're new to us, is Celebrates, where we celebrate the successes of our viewers. And it's a slow time of year right now, and I didn't get any celebrates in this week to put up here. However, Vicki Thomas sent us this lovely illustration, Father Christmas wearing his mask. And so I wanted to share that with you tonight. And thank you, Vicki, for sending that very timely and appropriate holiday illustration. And so send me your good news. Yes, Beth, it's a great drawing, isn't it? And, you know, clearly Vicki's a very talented artist. So thank you, Vicki. So I want to hear your good news. Again, mail at rightforkids.org and put celebrate in the subject line, and we will feature you on a future Kidlit distancing social. It could be a book contract. I got an agent. It could be I found a critique group. It could be I finished the first draft of my manuscript. Any landmark step, any you know, significant event in your writing journey, we want to celebrate with you. So send me those emails. So next week I'll have lots of celebrating. Okay, couple quick links of interest this week. I have talked in the past about Victoria Strauss's Writer Beware blog, which is awesome. And she has a new post about, it's more scam literary agencies that are posing as legit and actually contacting writers and asking for submissions and then money for various sort of marketing campaigns and that sort of thing that they're going to do. So go to this website or this blog, and she has a great article right here on how to spot a legit agency. So I made a bit.ly link, bit.ly/agency scams. And anytime you find a publisher or an agent that you're, something doesn't look quite right, you can go to her blog and search to see if she's written about them. She's awesome. Okay, in Publishers Weekly, just today came out, there was this great article, Children's Publishers Choose Their Favorite Reads of 2020. And this is a compilation Diane Roback does every year where she asks industry staffers to name their favorite book of the year, and it has to be a book that they did not publish. So it's really an interesting list. And if you're looking for new stuff to read, or if there's some books you think you missed this year, this is a great article to check out. bit.ly/favorite reads 2020, all lowercase. Okay. So now I'm very excited to welcome my guests. And Risa, you can certainly turn on your camera and microphone when you are ready. And hopefully Cori will join us. I don't know what happened to Cori. She hopefully she's fine and she'll join us soon. But Risa, welcome. Swallowed by a Secret, a middle grade. Wait, let me. I have my notes up here that I want to really. So she's the debut author for Swallowed by a Secret, a middle grade contemporary mystery that deals with issues of family secrets and grief and loss. And she has a standalone sequel that will be published in August of 2021. So that's awesome. And Immortal Works Press is your publisher. And so Risa, welcome to the Kidlit Distancing Social.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here and
Yes.
to expose everybody who's listening to an authentic Boston accent.
That's great. So risanyman.com, the website. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other better, but I just want everyone to be sure you go check out Risa's website, and we'll be, oh, hi, Cori. Cori's here. Yay. Okay. So before I stop sharing, hang on, turn that off. Hey, Cori. My other guest tonight is Cori Cooper, also a debut author, middle grade. And Cori's book is Bake Believe, which is a middle grade contemporary fantasy. And also, of according to your website, Cori. I want to talk about this. You're on a virtual book tour with Itsy Bitsy Book Bits, and I just really want to talk about that and find out what that's all about. So welcome, and CoriStories.com is her website. Debut author, and again, just by coincidence, also published by Immortal Works. Out of Utah. So that was just pure coincidence that both of you happen to be published by the same publisher, but I thought that was pretty cool. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see you all. Welcome to the Kidlit Distancing Social. Thank you all for being here. So let's start, Risa, with you. Can you give us a little brief sort of rundown of your journey, sort of how you became a children's book writer? What is your journey as an author?
Well, it was just by chance when I retired. This is not what I've been doing all my life. I did write, but I wrote what you might call nonfiction, grant proposals, press releases, op-eds for a nonpartisan organization to promote the active participation of citizens in democracy through voting, debates, and candidate and voting information. I did not do creative writing, but something happened. I found 3 pennies in an empty apartment that I thought was left to me by someone giving me a message, and that I wanted to put these pennies into a story. I was going to write a picture book. So I started with a course and learned pretty quickly that my voice was not for a picture book. I found my voice in middle grade, and that's where it started. And then I took courses, workshops, joined critique groups, and workshopped and kept writing. And the first novel I wrote is in the proverbial computer drawer where it belongs. It's the second novel that is swallowed by a secret.
That's often how it works. The first novel is your teaching novel. It teaches you how to be a writer, and your next manuscript is the one that you actually send out into the world and submit to publishers. Okay. Cori, how about you? Just looking at your website, it looks like you are an adamant baker, cooker. You love recipes, and this clearly has found its way into your book. So what is your journey to becoming a writer?
Oh my goodness. I decided I wanted to be a writer when I was in kindergarten. This has been a long journey. Do you want me to tell you the whole thing? It was a dark and stormy, just it'd take a long time. So basically, to break it down, I wanted to be a writer forever and ever. And then I tried to get published a few times when my kids were little, but I just found like this constant, I felt torn all the time. Like I want to write and I want to pursue this career, but then my babies need me. So I put it on hold for about 10 years, raised my babies. When my littlest went to kindergarten, I pulled it back out and dusted things off, and I started writing again. And Bake Believe is actually the 5th novel that I finished. So that's the one. When I finished it, I was like, this is the one. I felt it. I want this one out there. So I sent it out there.
So what was it about this 5th novel that you knew this was the one? How is this different from the other ones?
I don't know. I honestly think it was because Kat, my main character, is so much like my daughter, who was 13 at the time when I was writing it. I just felt like it was just fun. I don't know. It was so fun. I felt like it was the one to go down that route first.
So Risa, you wrote a mystery. What challenges are there in plotting out a mystery that you had to learn? Did you feel you really needed to get a good, solid grasp of this genre before you could feel comfortable submitting your manuscript to a publisher? You said you took classes. Were they specific to mystery writing?
No, they weren't. And my book is a mystery, but I don't think it's a mystery in what people ordinarily think of. The story begins with the main character, 12-year-old boy. His father dies suddenly, And he finds very quickly that his mother, he's not being told the true reason why. So the mystery is his search to find out the truth. It's a little different type of mystery. And of course, I can't tell you if he finds the truth and what the truth is, because that would be a spoiler, and I'm not going to say. And the book does deal with very sensitive issues. And that's the mystery. The mystery is finding the truth about what happened to his father. So it's a little different kind of mystery.
Now, both of you write middle grade, and that is a very tricky age to write for, because if you get the voice of your characters off just a little bit, your audience is going to know, and they're going to put the book down immediately. So what did you do to make sure that you had that really good middle grade sensibility in your writing and in your characters?
Well, for me, it was my critique partners, workshop leaders, workshops that I took, and people saying sometimes you use a word or a phrase, and you have good critique partners who say, that doesn't sound right. No, a 12-year-old boy is not going to say it that way. And then you have an opportunity to fix that.
Yes. Yes. Now, Cori, you said your daughter is 13 or was 13 at the time?
She was when I was writing it. She's 16 now. But okay, I'm going to tell you my secret. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
So exciting. Whenever I want to delve into the middle grade mind, all I do is watch Disney original movies. And I'm not even joking. So I fill my brain with the teenage world, and then I sit down and I write.
You are not the first author who has told me that, by the way.
Okay.
I think that is a great thing to do, because they have that middle grade sensibility down in those movies, that
they do
they have
a good job.
Whole marketing and focus groups who work on that. So that is a very good tip. Right. So let's talk about, once you had your manuscript ready and you felt confident it was ready to submit, did either of you ever think, I should find an agent, or was that something that you didn't even want to do? You wanted to go straight to the publisher? Cori, I'll start with you.
Okay, so interestingly enough, right when I decided I was ready to find a publisher and get published, I just read the book Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her work, but this book, well, full disclosure, it has a few swears, so be aware. She uses some heavy words, but the concept was so intriguing to me. She talked about her own writing journey and how when she'd send a manuscript out there, if there was a rejection, she would send out 3 more. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm gonna do. So I sat down and I made a list of all of the publishers who would take an unsolicited manuscript, and I sent it to 10 of those. And when rejections came in, I sent it to 3 more. And when I ran out of unsolicited publishers, then I started in on agents. But by the time I started, I think I sent it like 2 rounds of agents, and then I heard back from Immortal Works. So it took about 3 months, I think.
That's pretty quick, actually, in the lifespan of a submission.
It is. I feel really blessed that happened as easily as it did. But I did send out like 50 billion emails of my manuscript and query letters. So it was a lot of work too.
Right. Now, Risa, you had a slightly different experience.
My journey is different, and I don't have an agent. And sometimes I had heard that when you have an agent, which I would recommend for people building a career, but the process can take a long time from the time you get an agent until you get your book out, until it's published, until it actually, you see it in print. I lucked out, and I was picked up through a Twitter pitch party. That's party, P-A-R-T-Y. Okay. And there were some people who liked the pitch, asked for more, asked for a query letter, and somebody asked for 50 pages, somebody asked for 3 chapters, I don't recall. But I think going through the Twitter pitch party in a way that moves you up to the top of the pile too, because if somebody likes your pitch and they ask for more, they are going to look at it. And I got an offer from Immortal Works and never looked back. They're a small traditional publisher in Utah. They are growing. I've been with them 2 years now. I see how much they're growing in every way, and great people to work with, just great people. Editors, acquisition editors, production, cover design, all the people that I've dealt with are just great.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And for those of you who are interested in learning about Twitter pitch parties, if you go to our writeforkids.org blog and look at the, there's a link at the top to watch all the distancing social replays. Back this summer, we had PJ McIlvaine, who is the founder of the Picture Book Pitch Party event, but she gave a lot of great advice on how to write your pitch for pitch parties. And so definitely go watch that if you're interested in doing that, because it's a skill. I mean, you only have 280 characters.
And you need to use some hashtags to describe your book. So you really don't even have the whole 240. It's tricky.
Right. It is tricky. So she had some great advice for that. So let's talk about, so you got your contract as a first-time author. Were there any surprises during the editing and production process that you hadn't, anticipated? Risa, we'll start with you.
I didn't know anything about the process, so I'm going to say I didn't anticipate anything because I didn't know anything. It was all new to me, but I have learned. It's very interesting, the relationship between the publisher and an author, because once you sign the contract, in a way, although you have input as it's edited and you go back and forth, but basically the publisher has the book. They could change the title by contract if they wanted to. I mean, you could say you don't like the new title and you could discuss it. They pick the cover, they ask for input, but it's their decision finally what they think, and it makes sense. They're supposed to know the market better, and they're supposed to know what would be good for your book. So you have to rely on them. As I said, at Immortal Works, the people I've worked with are great. So I feel I lucked out, but I didn't know anything about it before I started.
How about you, Cori? Any surprises?
No, exactly the same. I had no expectations, so I had no surprises. I was just rolling with it.
Did either of you have to make substantial edits to the manuscript once you got that editorial feedback from the editor at Immortal Works? Cori, we can start with you.
I didn't, just normal edits, I guess. I mean, I've never done it before, so it was a lot of grammar and punctuation. And I was so grateful for my editor. There was a couple times where he said, you said something here, but then it contradicts itself in the next chapter. And I was just so grateful to have him. So yeah, I think it was, fairly standard, maybe. I don't know. It was a fine process. I enjoyed it. I loved editing. I thought it was really fun.
Risa, how about you?
I had a great editor. I thought she was great, and there weren't any huge changes, but she came up with something. I'll just put it this way. There's a voice in the book. There's a voice in it. And she came up with a way, a font and how to do that, to set that off, because it's not someone speaking. It's a voice, but it's not someone speaking. So it's not in quotes, because then you think it's dialogue. And the way it turned out, and that was her suggestion from something that she knew, it's in all caps, that voice, small all caps, but it's set off so that it's easy for a reader. Now, especially we're talking about a middle grade reader, it's easy to pick out when it's the voice, but it's not in quotes like dialogue, as if you're talking to someone. And I'm grateful to her for that. I would have liked to do it in 2 colors, but of course that wasn't possible. So she came up with this, and I thought this worked.
Yeah,
great.
sounds
I
like a
was
great
grateful to
solution.
her for
Mhm.
that.
Perfect. So for our listeners who are dreaming of the day that they finally get their first copy of their first published book in the mail, and they can open up that box and see their book, what does that feel like as a debut author? Is that our listeners can look forward to? So Risa, let's start with you.
Well, seeing your book in print, it is something. It's a little bit hard to believe when you actually see it or show somebody, or then you mail out copies to some friends or family, or you're signing copies or whatever. Yeah, I can't. I think I was kind of in shock the whole way. I thought I was fortunate. I'm in a lot of different groups with mostly children's authors. And it's a struggle to get published. It's a struggle. And I just thought I was lucky. And I thought it's just a bit of luck sometimes that you're at the right place and somebody looked at the pitch who liked it at the right time. It just all fell in to place. And I think that there is a lot of, I mean, you have to keep trying, but there is also, you need a break sometimes. And it just happened to me. I thought I was fortunate, and I still do. I still think I am fortunate.
How about you, Cori? How did that feel when you held your book in your hands for the first time?
It was magical. I still haven't gotten over it. Sometimes I'll walk by my bookshelf and just run my hand down the spine. Like, it's mine. It's so fun.
And have you, when you go into a bookstore, and I know we haven't been able to go into bookstores much this year, so hopefully in 2021 you could start doing this, but if you had been in a bookstore, do you immediately try to find your book and make sure that it's prominently displayed, moving things around on the shelves? I mean, have you had an opportunity to go into a store and look for your book? Cori.
I haven't. I don't know. How about you, Risa?
No, I haven't. And in some of the smaller bookstores with such limited shelf space,
Sure.
you don't always find a small publisher represented there. I will say that may not be always the way that your book gets out. Sometimes if it's a local bookstore and you know someone, you get them to carry your book or do a signing there or something. But they don't have a lot of space, and it's a lot of times the big houses that get the shelf space.
Yeah, that depends very much bookstore to bookstore. And so a lot of authors ask me, how much of a social media presence do you need to have when your first book comes out? Did your publisher, first of all, expect you to have much of a social media presence? They did. So
There was
what
something
kinds
in
of,
the contract.
oh, wow. Okay. And actually that is happening more and more, especially with the smaller independent publishers. They are putting that kind of information in, or, stipulations in the contract. So what kind of social media presence did you build as, to be ready for when your book comes out? Cori, we'll start with you.
Oh my goodness. That was the hardest part. I'll be completely honest. Writing the book felt like a cinch to marketing it. But I was sort of starting from scratch. I'm not a huge social media person. So I had to set up a Twitter account, which took me like 2 days and a lot of mental cuss words. And then I set up an Instagram one and an author Facebook page. And then I revamped my whole blog. I had a blog from like a million years ago where I was putting up family updates and stuff. So I had to revamp that and rename it and make it around, centered around my writing and my books. And then, yeah, it was a lot of work. So initially out of the gate, I did a lot of work getting all of that done. And now it's just maintenance. So I have a schedule I made for myself. So like every Monday, I update Facebook, and Tuesday I check on Instagram, and so on and so forth. I'm kind of a nerd that way, but it keeps me off of there too much and on there just enough to do what I need to do, if that makes sense, but not waste any time, because I want my focus to be on writing. That's what I love. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time doing stuff I don't need to.
Did we freeze?
Uh-oh. I think we
Uh-oh.
might have. Are you still there, Risa?
I'm here, but I think Laura froze.
Oh,
Whoops,
you know,
there she is.
I thought it might be my connection. It's so windy today.
Okay, Laura, you
No,
froze.
that was fine. I'm sorry. I apologize. We have found if someone else in the house is microwaving when we're on Zoom, it
Oh,
just
no.
like messes with the signal. So that's what happened. John forgot and he started microwaving something and it booted. It messed with
Oh,
my
that's bonkers.
So anyway,
Gremlins
I
in the-
apologize. You were talking about setting up social media and Twitter and Instagram and all of that. And then my signal started going weird. I don't know if other people could hear you. But just for my own benefit,
Yes, where did you leave off? And I'll try and just summarize what I said.
Okay, I apologize.
So you left off with, did you hear about my dorky schedule? On Monday I do Facebook.
That's actually sounds awesome though. So you have it set by day what you work on?
I do, yeah. So I just spend like a half an hour on each social media platform 1 day a week so that I can just do enough to do what I need to, but not waste a lot of time and not be on there. Because really what I want to focus on is writing. That's
Sure.
what I love. So I don't want to be spending a lot of extra time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that's the biggest challenge often with having a social media presence is limiting the time, because it can just suck up your day and you don't even realize it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you've spent an hour on Facebook and you're like, where did that hour go? Yeah, happens. But making it a different platform each day, I think is a great idea. So Risa, how about you? Well, how do you manage
Well,
this?
I sort of agree. I agree with Cori. I think it's just a huge consumer of time. It's just takes so much time. It's not just, I mean, I have to post on Twitter or Instagram or my Facebook, keep up the website too, make sure that's up to date. And I have, if I have subscribers, how I deal with that. So all of this takes time. Plus, to be part of the community when some other authors, they're posting on Instagram, I want to respond to them. I want to be part of the community, not just I'm posting and then of course, I would like people to respond to my post or my Facebook post, but I have to do that. You have to do that. It's a community. I have found the writers, the authors that I deal with, many from Immortal Works, my critique groups, other places, very supportive, great group of people. And I feel like I want to pay that back. So social media takes time for yourself, but I think you also have to try and be involved a little bit with some other people.
I agree. I think that's so important. The Kidlit community is very generous and they will support other writers, but you can't just drop into a Kidlit Facebook group and go, oh, here's my new book. You need to build that your place in the community first by commenting on other people's posts, sharing their good news on your Facebook page, etc. And then they will absolutely support you. And so I think that's smart. So as far as your websites go, did either of you hire someone to design your sites or did you make them yourselves? I like both of your websites very much.
Mine's homemade.
Go ahead, Risa.
Mine's homemade. I have taken some workshops for Kidlit authors in different places where they have people who have advised, on different things. So I've learned a lot. And I used to work with a website when I had my job before retirement. So I knew something about websites, but it's all myself. I sometimes wish I could hire someone, but I didn't.
there's so many great sort of templates now to create websites that it's not as complicated as people
No, it's not.
think.
not.
It's really not. Cori, how about you? Did you design your own site?
I did. I was self-taught.
Nice.
Trial and error. It was
Yeah.
fun though. I loved it. I love it. It kind of like sparks that creative, part of all of us. But it takes a while to kind of figure out how it works. But once you get that, then it's fun.
Yeah. So you both have elements on your site that keep your readers kind of engaged with your books and maybe give them a reason to come back, which I think is really important, especially if you hope to have more books on your site down the road. So Cori, tell us about, first of all, what was the itty bitty book tour? Let's see, Itsy Bitsy Book Bits?
Yeah.
Was that? Tell us about that.
Oh, it's the best. I love them so much. Everybody should work with them. They are fantastic. I have been so happy. So you go and you purchase a plan, and then they manage your marketing for you of your book for a while. Oh my gosh, I can't even say enough good things. It is just fantastic. So they've put it all over social media. They share it everywhere. They're doing this thing where they read 15 minutes of it to get people hooked, and they are fantastic. They've designed like these little memes that I can post on things that have quotes from my book on it. It's just so good. Anybody who's interested, even a tiny bit, should go check it out because it's fantastic. And it's all family run. This woman is amazing, and her husband's not able to work. So she's supporting her family by doing these book tours, and she's so good. So good.
Wow. That's awesome. So it's Itsy Bitsy Book Bits.
That's right.
Book what?
Itsy Bitsy Book Tours, I think.
Itsy Book Bits Tours. Yeah, it's IBBB.
Yeah, Bits Tours.
I did that. I did it too. It's very.
So you use them as well. Great.
I did
Great.
at the beginning, and I thought everything Cori said, I agree with 100%. And also people who were involved with that read the book and left reviews. And that was also very helpful because, as you know, it's helpful if you have more reviews on Amazon. That's quite helpful. So that was
very important
benefit from that. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, because that is getting those reviews on Amazon it's a hard thing, and it's, as the author, you don't always want to ask people to review your book. It feels kind of uncomfortable sometimes. So it's nice that that's part of what they helped set up for you, is to get those reviews there. So what is a virtual book tour like? What kinds of things did you do during this period? And obviously in a non-pandemic time, you would hope to also do book signings and in-person events, and hopefully you'll be able to do that maybe, at some point in 2021. But for now, launching a book online, what kinds of sort of virtual events did you do? So Risa, we'll start with you.
Well, if I have an opportunity like this one, Laura, I would definitely take advantage of it, and I appreciate it. I've done a few interviews, and I do try and take advantage of any of those types of opportunities that I can. It isn't easy. You just keep trying to promote and find ways to promote your book and offer something. I've just written some bonus chapters, which I'm offering, for free, which cover a period in the Swallowed by a Secret story, obviously, that's not in the book, that happens from the moment the boy finds out his father died until the funeral. That's not part of the story that's in the book, and I'm offering that. So different things to try and keep people involved and interested.
Right. And I notice you have a middle grade book club discussion guide on your site too. So sort of prompt your readers to actually create a book club around it and discuss the book.
And I wrote that with a professional educator because I am not a professional educator. And I wanted teachers or librarians to be able to use it, and I wanted to make sure that it was correct for the age group. So I
Mhm.
did. And it's on my website, and it's available free. It's just
Mhm.
anybody
That's a
can
great
see.
idea. Do you have any way of communicating with, now it's a little tricky when you write for middle grade or younger, because it's not like you could collect these kids' email addresses or anything like that. That's not allowed. When you write for adults, you can have an author newsletter, people can subscribe to it, you can communicate with your readers that way. So have you tried to figure out any way to sort of have a regular communication with your readers, as far as, a newsletter could certainly go out to like teachers, um, but have you figured anything out along those lines as a way to be able to directly communicate with your readers on a regular basis?
Well, I think you
Cori or Risa.
have to connect with teachers, librarians, parents. I mean,
Mhm.
you really can't connect directly with
True. Yeah. Yeah.
children. Maybe I didn't have any in-person events. I had two scheduled, two
Mhm.
big events that, of course, never happened. I wondered if there would have been young people there, and I had swag, especially the young people. So I still have the swag.
Well, I hope you saved it all, and you'll do it as soon as possible. So Cori, tell me a little bit about your website and what other stuff you have for your audience there. You have recipes, right, on the website?
Yes, I'm right in the middle of a big revamp of my website. So this is a good time to ask me because I can tell you what I have and what I will have.
Okay, so
right
what
now,
will you have?
I have a lot of recipes on there right now. I have some, I live at a really high altitude, so I have some high altitude baking tips. But then I also have, under the Bake Believe tab, I have recipes in the voice of my main character, whose name is Kat. So that was just kind of a fun thing, because in the book, she has kind of an opinion about the way recipes are written. So I kind of go through that to tie it in. And then there's some stuff from her best friend, Robin, that's in her voice that's on there. So that's fun for kids if they're allowed to, with parental permission, go on the website. That was kind of for them. But in the future, what I'm working on is doing a beginning creative writing course for kids specifically, so that parents or homeschoolers or teachers can go on there and have a formula and some curriculum to teach their kids how to creative write. And also I want to do a beginning baking class. So I'm working on getting YouTube set up to do that and have them cook with me. So that's a lot of work, and it's Christmas. That may not happen for a little while, but that's my plan.
Yep. That sounds wonderful. And I think that those kinds of ideas are so important for every writer to think about. What can you add to your website that makes either the children come back, or their parents and teachers come back, and keep giving them more value and more things to do that are connected with your book. And then of course they're going to want to have the next book and the next book once they become fans and keep checking back on your website. So those are all really great ideas, I think. I've had a couple questions here. People asked if either of you used a lawyer to look over your publishing contract because you didn't have an agent. So Cori.
I didn't actually. I went over it very thoroughly with a very pretty pink sparkly pen a couple of times. And then I have a friend who worked for a literary agent for like 5 years. And I emailed it to her and just asked if she would look through it, because she's more familiar with the format of a contract than I was. And ultimately, I just came to the conclusion that I'm a first-time author. I don't really have a name. I don't have a presence in this industry. And I was pretty much willing to just take whatever. I know that sounds awful, but it was more of like a peaceful thing. I'm like, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to get out there this first time. And then the hope is in the future, I'll have a little more clout
Absolutely.
and wiggle room. But right now, I just felt like, I feel like what they're offering is fair. They're taking a chance on me. Like, this is a risk. How do they know I'm going to be a good investment, you know? So
Mhm.
yeah, I wasn't too worried about the contract, to be honest. I just went with it.
Great. Risa, how about you?
Well, I think the same thing. I mean, I think the publisher does take a risk and they're hiring an editor, they're having the cover design, they're putting it into production. Immortal Works does the Kindle version, a paperback, and an audio book. I thought they were offering a lot. Uh,
Mhm.
I thought the compensation was fine, but I can't judge it with anything else. And it's not a big publisher. They're not paying big advances,
Mhm.
but perhaps the royalty is a little larger than, I don't know exactly how it works with a big publisher,
Mhm.
but it
Mhm.
seemed to me that the publisher in the contract was offering a lot to do it in 3 different formats. And
Mhm.
to assume, I mean, this is a traditional publisher. There were no cost, no fees to the
Right.
author at
Mhm.
all, nothing. So it means they're assuming, like Cori said, you're a debut author, they're assuming all the costs and expenses.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah, I did not have a lawyer look at it, but I did read it. Like Cori said, I read it. Maybe I
Mhm.
didn't use a pink sparkly, maybe it was a yellow highlighter or something, I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of writers decide they're going to hire a publishing, make sure it's a publishing attorney, someone who's familiar with publishing contracts. But usually you can buy an hour or two of the attorney's time, and he or she will look over the contract and just explain to you what you're signing and make sure you understand it, and might give you some advice on certain areas you can try to negotiate. And it depends on the publisher. Big publishers, their contracts, I don't know about Immortal Works contract, but the big commercial publishers, the big four now publishers, their contracts are like 15 pages long. I mean, there's a lot of information there. And I don't know if your contracts were that enormous, but it can be daunting
8,
to look at
yeah,
that.
7, 8,
Absolutely.
8 pages.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. But there's also some really good books out there written by literary agents on how to read a publishing contract and what it means. And I think even as long as you just understand what you're signing, I think that's important. But you're right. A lot of first time authors don't have a lot of power in negotiating because it is a big risk the publisher's taking. Once you've established yourself and have gained an audience, then you can have a little more clout when it comes to negotiating. So let's go through a few questions here. We have some great questions. Okay, so here we go. Lots of people are wondering about that contract thing. Did the publisher do any marketing on your books? Now, again, this is a fairly small publisher, but did Immortal Works send out, say, review copies to your book, to certain review journals or anything like that? Or do you know what their strategy was in helping you market the books? Risa, I'm so used to only having one person to interview that I forget I have to call on you.
Um, um, I think a lot of it falls on the author, especially with a small publisher. I think they've been supportive and helpful, giving me everything I need, giving me advanced copies that I could send out for review in different formats to people. But what I've noticed with Immortal Works, as I say, I've been with them 2 years, they are growing and they are doing a lot more in marketing now than they did 2 years ago. They
Mhm.
have a new marketing director. She's excellent. She's had webinars for the authors on websites, on Amazon, how to make sure your Amazon page is good.
Mhm.
So you still have to do your website, you still have to fix your
Right.
Amazon page, but they are doing a lot more than they did. But there's still, I would say most of it is
Mhm.
author driven. That's my
Mhm.
feeling.
Right. Is that your experience as well, Cori, that they pretty much expected you to do the lion's share of the marketing?
Yeah, so they do a lot of posting and sharing and announcing of your stuff. And they also did a short story promotion. If we wrote one of those, then they would promote it for us to, grow web or newsletters. And then they also had a deal where if you wanted to send your book to, what's it called, NetGalley, or one of those bigger review sites where you have to pay quite a bit of money for, then they can get a discount as a small publisher. They don't pay for all of it, but it's a lot cheaper than trying to handle all that yourself. So I feel like they did a lot that they could, for being a small publisher. They did a lot, and they're really supportive and great. Like Risa said, their marketing director is amazing.
Great.
We'd be really happy.
Well, and I imagine as when you were able to do in-person events, that's really when having a good publisher behind you helps to set up, if you're setting up a bookstore signing, but you want to make sure that the publisher gets the books there to the bookstore so that they can sell them, so that you can sign them. And a lot of publishers are really great about supporting their authors when they do school visits and that kind of thing. So I imagine as things open up and you get to do some of those events, you will be working a lot more with the marketing director as well. But what a lot of people don't realize is it doesn't matter what size your publisher is. These days, authors are pretty much expected to do most of the marketing. That's just the business now.
Yeah.
Unless you're already a well-known author and then they put marketing money behind you because they've paid a lot for your book. So they want to get that back. Yeah, that's just the way the business is now. So, and getting creative with the marketing is so important. So it sounds like you two are well on your way with doing a lot of that sort of stuff. Dylan asks, is it necessary to have a separate blog if you have a Facebook page and a website? Now, Risa, you have a blog, right, on your website?
Well, I do. Cori said she does too. Yeah, I have a blog.
Okay. I missed that.
I have a blog on my website. I don't know if you need it. As I say, one of the things, just to give a specific example, the marketing director at Immortal Works explained to us how we can get our blog to appear on our author's page on Amazon. Now, I had no clue, and actually took me a little bit to do it, but she gave us instructions. So now on my author's page, if I update my blog on my website, it appears on my Amazon page.
Okay.
Author's page. So that's a kind of, she explained how to do it. So I thought that was valuable. But
I think that is valuable.
Blog though, I don't know.
Right. Now, how often, so Cori, you have a blog as well. How often do you post on it? And you said your site and everything is under renovation right now. So
Yeah.
you may be planning to post on it.
Yes, in the past, I would post every Friday, so once a week, and it was usually a new recipe. But I don't know, us writers, we just can't stop writing. You want to write about your experience and about writing and about everything that you see. So I think all of that ends up in there too. It's more a collection of random thoughts, at least for me. And yeah. And right now it's not on my website. If someone went there, you wouldn't see my random thoughts. So I took that down while I'm renovating, but it'll be back up there. We all need some random, right?
Yes. Well, and I think having a blog is a great thing if you post on it. If it becomes this huge stress for you to have to create content for it, then don't do it. Spend your time doing stuff that is not as stressful and that you're going to actually do. So, but I love that connecting it to your Amazon page, your author page on Amazon. That's very valuable. So when you write blog posts, you're a middle grade author. Your audience is middle grade readers, but they're not reading your blog probably. No. So who are you writing to on your blog posts?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know if I know the answer. Not middle grade readers. Not middle grade readers. Perhaps other authors or just people who are interested in the journey. As I say, I have a sequel coming out in August, so I have a recent blog to sequel and not to sequel, because I never had a plan to sequel. So then it just happened. So I don't know who would be interested in reading that.
Uh-huh.
You know, I really don't.
But again, if your goal with the blog is to just get your name out there and you are writing your blog for other writers, they might still be interested in reading your book. They have kids, you know, so it's still spreading the word
You
in
never
a
know.
different way. Yeah. How about you, Cori, when you write blog posts, kind of who do you imagine is going to be reading them?
I just write them for me. Is that so selfish? I just write because I love to, and I hope it's beneficial for someone else too, but I just do it.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. And the people who appreciate that post will read it and probably want to read your book, you know, because they're getting to know who you are as a person through your blog posts. And I think that's a really important part in marketing as an author, being authentic to yourself and letting people get to know you as a person.
Yes, let's pretend I was doing that and that was my master plan, and it wasn't just that I was writing for me.
Okay,
That's
cool. Of course, that was your master plan. Awesome. Okay, I'm just going to ask a couple more questions here. Okay, so we have a lovely comment here. You are both so inspiring and have the right attitude. Any other ways, like traditional query letters, that you recommend? I know, Cori, you said you sent out many. So first of all, this is a two-part question, but let's talk about that query letter first of all. And Risa, you did the Twitter pitch party, but had you queried publishers before that on this
So
book?
I actually hadn't started it yet, but I did have a query letter, and even in a Twitter pitch party, if someone likes your pitch,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it could be an agent, an editor, a publisher, whatever. They want a query letter, and then they'll tell you how many pages they want with it. So in that way, it moves you to the top of the pile, but then it's still standard. You still need the query letter
Mm-hmm.
to be written. And of course,
Sure.
they don't have to accept you. So
Right. So Cori, do you have any tips on writing a great query letter?
No, I hate query letters with a fiery passion. They're so hard.
the other authors, right?
You have to summarize the depth and breadth of your whole novel into one page. It is so hard. But you know, you get there. I think it helps a lot in this case, like Risa was saying before, to have a really good critique groups or partners who can read through it and be like, you can leave that out. You just need bare bones. Like, you can tighten that up. That is so valuable with the query letter, to have lots and lots of eyes on it. And I also think this is important because when I was researching mine, a lot of people were like, just follow this form. They just want to see like these checkpoints. And I was like, that's great, but then I'm just going to sound like everybody else. So I think it's really important to put some personality in there too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, show a spark of who you are and why your book's going to be amazing because you wrote it. And you don't have to be braggy doing that. It's just, you know, show your voice as you write your note and don't make it really clinical or boring.
Well, and I think that is one of the hardest parts of writing a query, is having that voice of your writing in the query when you have had to distill your book down into just a paragraph or two. And that is the hardest thing. So how about you, Risa? Do you have any great tips on writing a query letter?
I agree. It's difficult. It's really a hard thing to do. I think, like a lot of things, maybe even like your book itself, the opening sentence is really key. I mean, after you tell them I'm off, it's a middle grade or whatever, in so many words, you know, then you've got to have a dynamite first sentence. I think that always counts for a lot when these people are reading it. I think that you need to hook them so fast because they have so many to read. I mean, you've got to get them quickly.
That's true. And if your story has a hook to it and you can get that hook, the concept of your book has an interesting hook. And if you can get that into the first sentence of your query letter, I think that is really, really important. And then they'll keep reading because they want to know more about this interesting concept. Absolutely. Let's see. Okay. Oh, the second part of this question was, do you feel your publisher does a good job of marketing to schools and libraries? But again, it's really hard to tell right now because we are in a strange time. Normally, you could be doing school visits and you could be going to libraries and doing book readings. And so I don't know if you can even answer that question at this point. Do you know?
Well, I do know that the publisher, Immortal Works, is coming out. Well, they have a catalog of their works that they send out, I don't know where, and they are going to make a catalog of their middle grade. Obviously, that would be targeted, I assume, to schools and libraries. So they're working on that.
Right, right. Okay. A couple people have asked about the marketing company you recommended, where I'm going to say this again, Itsy Bitsy Book Bits Tours. Do I have that right?
That's right, you got it.
Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Google it. We will see if we can get someone from there on our distancing social. I think that would be a great guest to have.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And then a couple people have asked about lists. Do you have lists of teachers and libraries that you contact? Again, not something you could really be doing right now. This is years ago when I actually worked in marketing at a publishing house, we did have lists of like libraries, like mailing lists that you could purchase and mail out, you know, a little one sheet about the books and that kind of thing. I don't know if they have those anymore, if you can purchase those kinds of lists anymore as an author. Is that something you even heard about?
I haven't.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. I think going to starting with the schools and libraries in your community that you can physically go to and show them a copy of your book is probably the best way to get started as far as getting into those markets. And your publishers should be marketing to the libraries. I'm sure they are. But as far as you going personally to the ones in your area, I think a lot of times they're more eager to carry books by local authors. So person to person is the way to go. Again, hopefully soon you can be doing that.
Right.
I am going, okay, so here's one by Robin, maybe I can help. I wrote Houghton Mifflin Publishers for permission to rewrite The Starfish Thrower in a poem, haven't heard from them. Oh, sorry, Robin, that's a very specific question. And if you want to send me an email, mail@writeforkids.org, and I can answer that for you. But in a nutshell, if you've written for permission to use something that they have under copyright, you're going to have to wait for them to get back to you. There should be a specific permissions department that you can contact. So I would go on their website. If you didn't, very often they are listed on the website, and you will be able to contact directly the person who can give you an answer to that. Lisa says, I'm pre-published. Would creating a website now be recommended? And what would I include? I'll ask you guys your advice on this. My personal opinion is, I think you need to start establishing a social media presence before you're published. I don't think it has to be a full website because you might not have a lot to put on it. But even if you have a Facebook page that's, you create a Facebook page for you as an author. So you might start posting stuff about publishing, about writing. You might join Facebook, writing related Facebook groups from that Facebook page so that you have a professional author associated Facebook presence, and all your party pictures from New Year's Eve can go on your personal Facebook page. I think that's certainly something you can do. Twitter and Instagram, you can again be starting to get connected with the writing community. Do either of you feel like you need to have an author website before you get published, or is that something you sort of scramble to put together right before your book comes out? Cori, what do you think about that?
That is a really good question. I could just tell you my stats are that my Facebook page and Instagram get a lot more views than my website does. So I guess I would say if you are short on time, or you need to concentrate on just one or two things, I would probably focus in on social media first, and then as I had time available, then set up a website, because I do think it's important to have one, to have like a landing page where people can find out more about you when they want to. But as you're starting, if you're limited on time, I would just stick to the social media end of it. It gets more views.
Mm-hmm. And I think initially, when you are querying an agent and often a publisher these days, if they're interested in your book, one of the first things they're going to do is Google you,
Right.
and see what comes up. And if they see that you have a Twitter account or Facebook page, that even if it's not super writing related, they know that you are comfortable being on social media, and you are more likely to be able to help market the book. And so that's a good thing. So you kind of want to have something come up when they Google you, but it doesn't have to be a full website now. So, and again, remember, anything you put online never goes away. So if you want to write for children, have an alias for your party pictures that go up. Let's see. One last quick question here, and I can't remember this. This is from earlier. A question: What free website did Risa mention for help with appropriateness for libraries? Do you remember what you were talking about? That was early on. I'm trying to remember the context of that.
Libraries. Well, my book deals with sensitive issues,
Mm-hmm.
so that in the middle grade discussion guide that I've prepared with an educator, I made
That's
sure
right.
that I put on the front page trigger warnings, because the book, the book is not, well, it deals with mental illness. And I won't say any more because it's a mystery. You've got to read it. But obviously, you're dealing with children, and you have to be sensitive about it. I also had a psychologist who happens to be a children's author do a sensitivity read on my book to make sure that I was saying everything in an accurate way, a sensitive way, and especially knowing that children would read it. And the book is not deep into mental health issues at all. It's not at all that. But there is some, and to me, it was very important. You're dealing with young people. I'm not a professional psychologist. I made sure that somebody read it. And I actually had her in the process do it twice. Once early on to see if I made changes, and once just before it was final. It just was extremely important to me. I didn't put something out there that wasn't worded correctly.
I think that's a great.
And appropriately, correctly and appropriately. I would say both of those things. Yeah.
That's great advice. Okay, I'm going to ask you your final question, but I want to put the slide back up with your books. In the meantime, Glynis, I see your question. Why don't you email that to us directly, mail@writeforkids.org, and we will get you set up with that code you need. Okay, so I wanted to ask you both your best advice for aspiring authors who are looking forward to their first publication. Maybe they're writing their book still, or they're in the submission process and they're getting frustrated or discouraged. What is your best advice for them? Cori, let's start with you.
My bestest advice. if you're discouraged, my advice would be to just keep trying, like keep putting it out there and maybe put it out there twice as much as you did before. There's like 50 bazillion people in this world. Somebody's going to love your book. I promise. Like at least one person besides you is going to want to read it, and probably a whole lot more than that. So if you're discouraged, just keep trying and just keep going. But also generally, as some advice for writers, I wish someone had said this to me sooner. I sort of had to stumble on it myself, and it was mind blowing. So I'm going to share it. My advice is to be you. Like, if someone reads your manuscript and they're like, I didn't really like this part or that part, or I think you need to change this, that's fine. They can have that opinion. But if that doesn't feel true to you, keep it in there. Do what is true to you and be you, because, like, what you're going to say is important. The story you have to share is huge. People need that. So don't let other people's opinions overweigh your inner gut, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, listen, absolutely, and be humble. And if something does need to be looked at, then look at it. But overall, just, I feel like, especially in high school when we're really impressionable, I had a creative writing teacher who was not really in love with my style of writing. And he was always trying to make me be Ernest Hemingway or Oscar Wilde. And I'm like, I am not dark and brooding, man. I cannot do this. Like, what you see is what you get. There's nothing deep underneath there, right? So, plus those men were miserable. Who wants to be like that? Anyways, my point is just embrace who you are and write who you are, and take all advice and all critiques and everything people throw at you with a grain of salt, and believe in yourself, because what you're going to say is super important and people need it.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Risa, how about you?
I would say what they've probably heard, but it's true, not to get discouraged. Absolutely not. Everybody, I think, who writes, everybody I know has been discouraged. They've presented their book, whether it's critique partners or workshops, or had somebody read it and, with comments that make you never want to look at it again, except that 2 or 3 days later, you get a great idea how you're going to fix that and do it, and you go back to it. If you're a writer, you keep going back, and you go back again and again, and you never give up, because everybody has had, whether it's rejection from a query letter, or it's someone that you had read it who said, well, that first page is terrible,
Yeah.
or you need to start your book at the second chapter. That first chapter should be just, you're in love with it, get rid of that. Everybody has faced that. And so you shouldn't get discouraged and think that it's just you. It's not just you. You stick with it. Stick with it.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So persistence is key to becoming a published author, which we all knew, but it's good to hear it again. Well, congratulations to both of you on your debut. This is very exciting. We have a lot of people in the chat box saying they plan on reading your books, which is awesome.
Thank you very much, Laura, for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Thank you. This was so fun. Thank you, Laura.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. And thank you all for being here tonight. And I hope you check out these authors and their websites and their books. And I hope you hang out with us next Tuesday. We're going to have another great guest. And in the meantime, happy holidays to everybody. Stay safe and enjoy your celebrations. Okay. Good night, everybody.